Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It has been a while since I've said that. It just occurred to me it's actually been 2 months since I filmed a video. No wonder my microphone sensor is not charged. It's actually uncharging, so sorry about the audio. But today is the start of Summerween, and it's also 2 years since I started my YouTube channel, which is pretty crazy. It's been a while. Things have kind of calmed down a lot. In May, I was actually still putting together the April vlog, and then I took the entirety of June off. So that is why it's been 2 months since I've actually made a video. So I was wondering why I was so excited about this, but we're going to start today with Summerween. For those of you who don't know, Summerween is a week-long readathon hosted by Gabby Reads here on YouTube. You can also find more information on that on This Is Summerween, the Instagram that hosts it. And I've done it for the past 2 years, and I actually didn't know if I wanted to do Summerween this year because last year was so chaotic. I tried to read 6 books in a week, which, let's be honest, that wasn't smart in the first place. So I'm going to simplify it a little bit this year and keep it at 3 books, maybe a 4th, depending on how much time I spend on these 3 books that I already have planned. So we're going to get started with the TBR, and the first book on the TBR is for the prompt, read a book in the dark or read a horror thriller book, and it is actually a reread. I'm going to read The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. Yes, I've already read this book, but there is no rule that says I can't have a reread for Summerween. This is probably one of my favorite horror books right now. Still, it's just atmospheric, it's lovely, it's done very well. Basically, it's about Arthur Kipp, who is telling he's writing down his story for his stepchildren because they ask him for a ghost story and he can't tell it, so he writes it down, and this is the result. It's eerie, it's gothic, it's atmospheric, and I think it's a very well done horror book. I already read this in October of last year, and I read it in one sitting, and this year I really just wanted to slow down and sit with it for longer and read it in the dark. I do actually have a new book light that is amber colored, like the bulb is amber, so it's not blue light. So this should be interesting, because usually when I do read a book in the dark, I use the Kindle so I don't strain my eyes, but I didn't want to pay for this book again by getting it through Kindle, so instead I got a reading lamp. I got a book lamp. So I'm excited to get back into this book again. I love this book. I thought it was very well done. And I still highly recommend this. So we're gonna reread this one. The second book I have is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This one is a retelling of the Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, and there is mushrooms involved. I love mushrooms, but it's also horror involved, so this should be an interesting read for me. Other than that, I really don't know anything about this book. It fits under the horror thriller and a book less than 250 pages. It's 158 pages. It's 2 pages shorter than A Woman in Black, which I think is hilarious because this is not considered a novella. This is. But it depends on word count, apparently. I have actually read a couple of T. Kingfisher books recently. I read The House of Good Bones and Nettle and Bone. So T. Kingfisher no longer fits under a new author, but I've read enough of her books to know I like her writing style, so I'm kind of excited about this one. The last book on the TBR is Dollhouse. I don't even know the author's name at this point in time because it's an audiobook. I don't have it. I'll leave it on the screen here, but I know literally nothing about this book. It had a pink cover. I misunderstood the prompt. The prompt is a book with pink on the cover, not a pink cover. But I found this one at Barnes & Noble and decided I don't really want to pay $30 for it, so I'm gonna listen to it through Spotify for Summerween, and especially since it's a new author, which is another prompt, by the way. I don't know how I like this writing style, so I don't know how this is gonna go. But I have heard it described as Scream and Barbie kind of mixed together with a murder mystery or a horror author protagonist. So that's about all I know about this book. I know it's a slasher and it should be interesting. So yeah, that is my bona fide TBR. This will be done this week. I have one more in mind in case I finish these. I am going to try and mix in Mexican Gothic. I mean, I like Gothic horror, why not give it a try? And I know this one's really popular and I'm hoping I like it too. Either way, I'm gonna read it. I haven't, the Libby hold came in and I'm like, perfect. So yeah. So I might sneak with Mexican Gothic in here. Again, know nothing about the book, but it's not a bona fide this is on my TBR because I have to finish the other 3 first before I even think about reading that one. Anyway, this should be fun. I am looking forward to vlogging again. It has been 2 months and hopefully everything has kind of calmed down enough. I'm actually really glad it took June off because I did not take into account that my husband and I were going on vacation in South Dakota, and then 2 weeks later was VBS. I don't know where I would have had time to read, vlog, and actually edit because June was so busy, but it was a good busy and I was exhausted. I always like to remind people that the term Summerween did originally come from Gravity Falls and their Summerween episode, and I swear it was just Alex Hirsch trying to it gave Alex Hirsch an excuse to make a Halloween episode in a show that takes place in a single summer. So I think that's gonna be it for our intro. We do have plans today. I actually have to pack at some point because we're staying overnight in a hotel because our 4th of July is kind of busy. I will bring What Moves the Dead with me. I'm going to start with this book because this one is read a book in the dark or at night, but I'm going to start with T. Kingfisher. And just bringing one book, I think, will be better than trying to bring both books, even though they're both relatively small. But we're going to start with this one. We're going to start with What Moves the Dead, and I'm excited for this Summerween. And I will see you guys with an update later. Good morning, it is Summerween Day 2. My microphone is all charged. Summerween Day 2 is going to look a lot more just like summer because it's Independence Day and we are spending some time with my husband's side of the family. So it is America's 250th day, which apparently has been like a really big deal obviously this year. So we're gonna go to the lake and hang out with family. Now, what you're actually here for. I am on page 67 in What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, and so I'm about 40% of the way through the book already. It's not hard, it's a very short book, but it doesn't feel like it's a lot because it's page 67. I'm enjoying this. I think that T. Kingfisher is just great at humor. I mean, this is a horror book, and I've laughed because the jokes are just fantastic. It's eerie,
The mushroom stuff is interesting to me because I like mushrooms just as a general rule. So I'm excited to kind of see how this goes. I think I kind of know the story beats because obviously I've read The Fall of the House of Usher, but I like this drawn out version because I remember when I read The Fall of the House of Usher, I think I was so exhausted because I think I read it last year. I think I was so exhausted, I barely understood what was going on. So but I have a template. So I am enjoying this. And yeah, hopefully we can get some more reading done today for What Moves the Dead. But for now, we are about to leave the hotel and we are gonna go get some coffee. If you are ever in the Midwest, Caribou, thank me later. And then probably go to Target because I just realized my swimsuit doesn't fit because I grabbed the wrong one. Yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing today. See you guys later and maybe out on the lake.
Hey guys, it is so much later and I am exhausted from the events of today. I have a very sad reading update to which I have only read one more chapter of What Moves the Dead, and God bless my husband, the cover is slightly water damaged. I asked him to do one thing, and that was to keep this from getting wet, but his clothes were wet and it landed on him, and so there's water damage to the bottom of the book now. Anyway, I only got one chapter through What Moves the Dead. Things are starting to pick up a little bit, but honestly, I was hanging out with my husband's side of the family, and on top of that, like while I was trying to read like a quarter mile away on the other side, they were singing like live worship music and they were songs I knew. So I just started bouncing and singing along, and I'm like, I'm not paying attention to this book. I might as well just join in the worship session. And that's why I didn't get a lot of reading done, obviously, because like you're busy with family and that's always fun. But I read a single chapter of What Moves the Dead today. I know, so sad. But it is getting kind of late. It's not like night yet. It's not like dark yet, but I have to go to bed pretty early tonight. So I think I'm gonna darken the room quite a bit, and I'm going to read my book in the dark. I'm going to restart The Woman in Black. And like I said, I have read this book before, but I read it in one sitting, so I'm really excited to kind of sit with it for a little bit longer and sit with it for a couple of days. If my room is a little less spooky, I took my ghost blanket to the hotel last night, so it is currently in the washing machine because like everything else that we brought home. Yeah, that's pretty much my update, and next time you see me, I will hopefully be in the dark reading The Woman in Black. And that will be the end of Summerween Day 2 when I go to sleep. Hey guys, Summerween Day 3 has had a very late start because it's like 2 o'clock, but I'm exhausted from yesterday and I had nightmares last night, so I needed to calm down. And no, it's not related to Summerween. So now that I've calmed down and had lunch, I'm gonna continue with What Moves the Dead. I got to like chapter 3 in The Woman in Black last night, so I'm about halfway through, so maybe I can get a good chunk done before I read some more in the dark. Okay. So it is actually
night. It's Summerween day 4. It's 9 o'clock at night, and I have sucked at reading today. I DNF'd Dollface at 7% because I couldn't do it. The writing was clunky. I had no idea what happened at the end of chapter 0. I don't know why you just don't call that a prologue, but that's a whole other issue. And the amount of movie references within the first 3 chapters was maddening. So I DNF'd before it even got rolling. So I DNF'd Dollface and started listening to Mexican Gothic. I'm only about an hour in, and I have sucked at reading tonight because I've been in kind of a mood. And it's past 9 o'clock, and I have to take my meds soon, so I'll get a little bit of reading in the dark end. I think I'll get a little bit of The Woman in Black end, mostly because reading just kind of is soothing before bed, and I cannot believe I DNF'd a book at 7%. I may just not be a slasher girl. I did finish What Moves the Dead last night. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that update right now because how late it is, but I gave it 4 stars, so we'll just put it there and I'll give my thoughts on that later. But I wanted to do a check-in for day 4 and kind of say what happened. So I didn't get very far in either of my audiobooks today because I tried to get through Dollface, and then I was like, I'm gonna take a break at like the 6% mark. I was like, okay, let's take a break. I'll listen to a spooky podcast and then get back to it. And then I got back to it. They made another reference to The Shining, and I said, nope, I can't do this. I cannot do this. So I DNF'd and said, no, thank you. I'm probably going to get into some reading for The Woman in Black and try and get some reading at night or in the dark done before I go to sleep. I have been doom scrolling on TikTok for like 3 hours. I need to get off my phone. That is my update for Summerween day 4. Hopefully day 5 goes better because I now have a 10-hour book to finish. I'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully with a better update. Bye. My sensor wasn't plugged in for that last clip. Hey guys, it is almost the end of Summerween day 5, and I still haven't filmed a good update recently. I'm sorry about that, especially since I've already finished What Moves the Dead and I still haven't given my thoughts on it. But it is already getting late. It is already getting dark. So I thought I would spend some time actually reading before I go to bed, which won't be long from now. I did read some more of Mexican Gothic today. I'm really liking this one a lot better than I was liking Dollface, so I'm glad I made the switch. And it's nice and creepy and eerie so far, so I'll take it. Also, my husband scared the bejesus out of me yesterday by accident. I turned on thunderstorms on my phone and was listening through my noise canceling headphones because I can very clearly hear the AC. So I use noise canceling headphones, thunderstorm sounds to relax. I have all the lights out, and I have the book lit up with the book light. And it's not completely dark. I have my lamp set on nightlight, and I kind of lean back and close my eyes to kind of relax and focus before and bring myself in and not think about the things of the day. And my eyes were closed, and my poor husband walked in, and I didn't notice until I opened my eyes and saw him looking at me, and I screamed. And then he was like, why are you yelling at me? Because you scared me. So that was interesting yesterday. I feel bad. It was funny, but I feel bad. Anyway, back to the Summerween Readathon. Hey guys, it is Summerween day 6. I know I haven't given like a proper update in the last couple of days. I've been in a weird mood, but I have still been reading, so there's that. So I'm going to go over the things that I have read and what I've DNF'd. So I did finish What Moves the Dead by Teen Kingfisher. I gave this 4 stars. I did enjoy this one. It was delightfully creepy, and the mystery was interesting. And there were times I was literally kind of creeped out, and I'm like, this is why I read horror. I want to be creeped out. Because there are horror books that do not do that for me. What Moves the Dead did that successfully while actually having moments that were humorous, because T. Kingfisher is actually very good at kind of weaving humor into these books. And I actually appreciate it because I was actually giggling and laughing and I thought it was funny. I like Alex. I like our protagonist. It's definitely an interesting cultural difference when it comes to the ka and con pronouns. This is probably controversial, but I do not think this book specifically actually fits under the LGBTQIA plus banner. This isn't about sexuality. This isn't about a gender issue. This is a cultural thing, and from 1890, and it's a linguistic thing. The pronouns from this country change depending on certain things. They have different ones for children, they have different pronouns for rocks, I think was one of them. They have different pronouns for God, and they have different pronouns for soldiers. And since Alex is a sworn soldier, that is why the character uses different pronouns. And linguistically speaking, that does something very interesting later in the book that I can't actually spoil if you want to read this. But because it's more of like a cultural linguistic thing and not like a sexuality gender thing, I don't think it fits under that banner. That is my take on this. I was not meant to be written in 2026 identity politics. I really don't think this what the author intended. I still enjoyed this book. I did like Alex. I thought that was a very interesting take, and I do like what it does to the story. Like, it is actually important to the story. So yeah, What Moves the Dead, I do highly recommend for horror fans. I thought it was a lot of fun, especially Teen Kingfisher fans. I've read 2 other books by this author, and I enjoyed them. So I will probably pick up more Teen Kingfisher in the future. So that's promising. I ended up DNFing Dollface, which is another update, at 7% because I didn't like it. From the gate, the writing was super clunky. In chapter 0, just call it the prologue, like call it what it is, the language at the very end of the chapter is so confusing. I was like, wait, what just happened? So that's not good. Like, you can use flowering language and stuff, that's great, but I have to understand what's going on as a reader. And then on top of that, the amount of horror movie references that were made from chapter 0 to chapter 2, I couldn't do it. In the first 3 sections alone, we have references from Psycho, The Birds, The Shining, 3 times, Home Alone, and Mary Shelley. It's not a movie, but she's a horror icon. And I was like, I can't do this. If a book cannot hold its own in creepy atmosphere and has to use horror references to say, hey, this is a horror novel, I get it. That's why I picked up the book. But I couldn't get past that, and I decided to DNF. So I instead picked up Mexican Gothic, and I am about a little over 50% through with the book, and I am enjoying it so much better. I think I've discovered this about myself with Summerween and horror books, is I really like Gothic horror specifically. I have not had a good track record with slashers. Slashers may just not be my thing, but Gothic horror seems to really hit the spot with me, and I really think that Mexican Gothic really hits that spot. It's so much better. It's a much better read for me. It's going much better, obviously, because I've made it over halfway through the book. And I love Noemi. Please tell me I'm saying that right. Noemi? I'm listening to the audiobook, so I should be able to pronounce this. I like her. I like her character. I like this takes place in the 1950s, and it still has that same Gothic horror, high anxiety, high emotions, some manipulation going on, Gothic feel. The atmosphere is perfect, it's creepy, and for me, that makes a horror novel for me, is just the atmosphere. If you can make a good spooky atmosphere, I'm hooked. That's kind of what I'm looking for, is kind of that really spooky, really creepy atmosphere that gets you, just sucks you in. And a lot of like other parts of horror don't do that. But Mexican Gothic was such a good choice for me to switch to. I'm actually very glad the hold came in from Libby around the time of Summerween. So I had it sitting there ready to go. So I had the audiobook ready to go in case Dollface did not work out. I think that means that the prompt with a book with pink on the cover is one I didn't hit now because I DNF'd the pink cover. But also, I'm guessing that's Noemi on the cover. Her dress on the cover is like kind of like this like red pinkish color. I can count it. I'm going to count it. So we'll count it. And the author, I've never read from this author before. And I'm not going to say her name because I cannot remember it off the top of my head. And I will put it here because I'm apparently awful at remembering authors. For tonight, it is past 8 o'clock. My husband and I were playing Overcooked 2 on the Switch for like an hour and a half. So I'm going to actually get to reading. I did read quite a bit of The Woman in Black today. I know I'm supposed to be reading it in the dark, but the end of Summerween is literally tomorrow. And I have 65 pages left in this book. I just did the math earlier. So, yeah, 65 pages left, and I'm not even on page 100. But it's a very short book. It's like 100. This version is 160 pages. So I read a couple chapters today. I had a little extra time to read after an appointment today, and then I read on both my breaks. I will say this, after reading this book in the dark for so long, I don't like reading it when it's noisy because it brings me out of the atmosphere. So now I actually like reading this in the dark because it kind of adds to the spook factor. And I know the scene that I don't like because it's spooky is really coming up. So that's going to be terrifying. For anyone who has read this book, the rocking chair scene. That's all I'm going to say. The rocking chair scene. I'm dreading that scene. But I'm going to get back to The Woman in Black. I am currently on page 94. So I'm at the beginning of the chapter called Spider. It's for reference, Spider is a dog. I will say I do think it's funny that in the beginning of this book, when Arthur is telling the story and his stepkids are saying, "Come on, stepfather, you must know a ghost story," or they're trying to tell ghost stories, and the oldest says, "Must we turn off all the lights?" And the youngest is like, "Yes," because that's how you get the authentic atmosphere. And I was sitting here reading it with my lamp on going, valid, because that's exactly what I'm doing. So I think that's enough for an update for right now. Tomorrow is the last day of Summerween, so I really need to get into these readings. Hopefully I can finish Mexican Gothic tomorrow, but I really want to try it and finish this tonight. I've got 65 pages left. Can I do it? Maybe. We'll see what happens. But let me get back to reading. I'm losing light, which I shouldn't be. Mostly because we had like storms roll in, and of course the perfect reading weather rolls in when I'm driving. So I'm kind of going to get into the spooky vibe tonight. And I think that's my update until I see you guys again tomorrow. Okay, bye. It is 11 p.m. I have finished my last book of Summerween, which was Mexican Gothic, and gave it 5 stars. I finished The Woman in Black and gave it 5 stars. And now it's 11 o'clock and I'm tired. So I'll talk to you guys later, probably tomorrow afternoon, and then wrap up the video. And that marks the end of Summerween. It's actually been a couple of days because I had a busy Friday. We were unexpectedly in a 4th of July parade on July 10th. Anyway, so my update for this is I finished The Woman in Black for a second time and Mexican Gothic. Now,
The Woman in Black, of course, got 5 stars because it's still just that good. There's something about the atmosphere in this book that's just, it's creepy. There's no jump scares, there's no gore. It's just all atmosphere. It's a classic Gothic ghost story, and it is so good. Susan Hill does this expertly, and Arthur goes through so much trauma, and you can kind of see it in those beginning chapters before he actually gets to tell his story. I did have to read a couple of chapters, later on, especially like at work or in the car when it was light outside, because I was kind of getting down to the wire, and I noticed I didn't like reading it as much in that. Like, I had gotten so accustomed to reading this spookiness in the dark that reading it in the sunlight was not as enjoyable to me because I wasn't in that authentic atmosphere. But 5 stars to The Woman in Black. I highly recommend this to any Gothic horror fans. It is such a spooky read and so worth the read. It's only 160 pages, and I loved sitting with it longer than in one sitting. It's just really spooky. It's lovely. It's amazingly creepy, and I love it so much. The second book I finished on the last day of Summerween was actually Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I said that by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I think I said that right. This book was another 5-star. I ended Summerween with 2 5 stars, and one was a reread, which is already a 5-star, and the other was an unexpected treat. After the failure and the DNF of Dollface, going into Mexican Gothic, I was like, okay, Gothic ghost story, let's do this. And then in the last 75%, it goes into like, just fair warning to anybody who's into Gothic horror. The last 75, at like the 75% mark, it goes into like a little bit of body horror, which took me off guard. And I was like, ew. But it was so expertly written. I'm like, what is going on? I have to read this. I have to finish this. I have to understand what's happening. I love Noemi as a protagonist. She's well written. She's very spirited, and she's very unconventional for 1950s Mexico City. And it's well written. Like, you hear that a lot with like modern and contemporary writing. I'm not like other girls. I'm not like, conventional society. You see it a lot in Victorian settings, and it works really well here because it's just, Naomi herself is so well written. It's not a distraction, and you don't have to be told multiple times that she is unconventional. You already know, but it's such a strength in her, and I love that, and it helps her through everything. And I love Naomi as a Noemi. I love Noemi as a character, and it's just so well done. It's pleasantly creepy, and it starts out with this very Gothic feel, and by the time it does that switch that you're not expecting, you're so sucked into the book, you don't even care. Like, I didn't even care. I'm like, that's disgusting, but what's happening? I was so sucked in. I was like, this is really gross, but I want to know. Also, very good as an audiobook. The audiobook narrator, I will name her here, it's Frankie something, and I cannot remember the last name, was phenomenal. I didn't even want to read this at like 1.5 speed. I didn't want to read this at 2 times speed. I wanted to read it because the cadence was so nice. I read it at 1 time speed and like normal speed, and I think people should do that more often, because personally, I think if you listen to audiobooks and always listen to them at 1.5 or 2 point speed, you're missing some of that. Like, you're missing some of that cadence of the narrator, and it can mess with the cadence. So I was like, no, I'm too invested to speed it up, so I just need to sit and listen. And again, it came down to the wire. I went to bed so late Thursday night trying to get it finished, and I'm so glad I did. It was so good. 5 stars from me. Oh my gosh, it was so good. So, and that was Summerween for me. So, to kind of recap what I read this week, I read What Moves the Dead by Team Kingfisher. This was a 4-star, and yes, there were points in this book where I started laughing. There is something about Kingfisher and the way she writes her humor that I think just really sits well with me. And it's actually genuinely funny, and it breaks the tension a little bit, but not in a bad way. So, yes, this is a good book. I recommend this book. I might read some more of this series. They have it at my local library, so why not? And like I said, I read The Woman in Black, 5 stars, and Mexican Gothic. I am so glad I had this ready to go because it was so good. And then I DNF'd Dollface by Lindy Ryan. So I don't think I got the prompt of pink on the cover, because in the cover of Mexican Gothic, that dress is more of like a red color. So I don't think it really counts as pink. We may count it anyway, just to say I got all the prompts, but whatever, because it did actually fill the prompt of reading from an author I'd never read from before, because I'd never read Sylvia Morena Garcia before, and now I have. So that's exciting, but I just feel like I'm not a slasher person. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, with Dollface specifically, the writing was a bit clunky for me, and I only made it like 7%. But the writing was a bit clunky, and then on top of that, you're constantly mentioning like horror movies, and it's like, oh, it's like this horror movie. It's like, no, it's, why are you mentioning it so many times? It's like kind of my question with that. I'm like, you're breaking the tension for me. It's too meta, and I'm just like being thrown out of the experience. So it was a DNF at 7%. And I hope someone else enjoys this book. I did not. But I think my preference has, I think I've made it pretty clear to myself, especially, that my preference is much more Gothic horror than really other types of horror. Because they're books I actually genuinely enjoy, not because they're scary, but because they're fascinating. They're beautifully written, and it's, oh, it's so good. I need to give Dracula another fair shake this autumn. I really do, because I gave it 3 stars in my last one, but that's because I rushed through like the second half during a 24-hour readathon, which I've never done again, by the way, and gave it 3 stars. Absolute travesty. Absolute travesty. So we're gonna give Dracula another try this fall. But since it is the end of Summerween, and because I still have about a month and a half of summer left, because in Minnesota, summer ends after Labor Day. Summer in Minnesota is from Memorial Day to Labor Day. That is summer, because and the state fair marks the end of summer. So I have about a month and a half left of summer before fall starts. So I'm going to enjoy summer, because I love fall, but after fall comes winter, and I don't like Minnesota winter. This Georgia girl does not like Minnesota winter, but I like Minnesota everything else. It is a beautiful state. Like, literally, people should come here more often. I think as a palate cleanser from all of this horror, I'm going to pick up a fantasy book and pick up Within a Sanctuary of Wings, a memoir by Lady Trent, which is so bittersweet because this is the last book in the series, but I need a good fantasy palate cleanser after all of that horror, and I'm excited to read it. So I will see you guys in the next one. Probably not with that book. But that is basically all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I know I don't normally say that, but please do. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Make sure to leave a comment below. Leave a bat emoji in the comment section if you made it this far, just for funsies. I like bats, they're cool. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for sticking around. Bye.